Good morning. Welcome to this webinar. This webinar is the first of a series that the NewTechAqua project is organizing in aiming to disseminate results and especially conclusions or recommendations that we derived from the project. The webinar is organized today within the European Green Week and is one of the partners events that the European Green Week has accepted for in the program. We consider that the topic of the webinar is how to improve consumer awareness on European sustainable aquaculture is match very well the objectives of the Green Week. It's very, very related. This is a transversal issue we were discussing before the start of the webinar that affects all of us that are in the aquaculture sector, but affects also the consumers and also the citizens. When we are talking about acceptability, awareness of aquaculture, we are talking about citizens, consumers, producers, because it doesn't matter where you are always a citizen. So the awareness, perception of aquaculture is something that is related with all of us. And that's why this topic was selected as the first webinar of the series of the NewTechAqua webinars. So let's, as I told you, and then I repeat, this is a partner event within the EU Green Week, which aims for improving the skill for sustainable, resilient, and socially fair communities on Europe. So you've been saying that the webinar aimed to present the results, conclusions, recommendations from the NewTechAqua project, as well as one of our sister projects, or the same call that NewTechAqua was approved, which is the FutureEUAqua project. Today we have with us Temis Altintzoglou, sorry, you will pronounce it better, Altintzoglou from Nofima, partner of this project. And we have common objectives in the project as it should be, in this question about awareness, perception of aquaculture. So there's a very brief introduction about the NewTechAqua project. The project was started in January 2020, is finishing this year at the end of the year in December. NewTechAqua is the acronym, but the title of the project is Developing Competitive and Environmentally Friendly European Aquaculture. It's an innovation action, and it was approved under the call on Sustainable European Aquaculture 4.0, Nutrition and Breeding. The project is coordinated by the University of Bologna, and it comes with the participation of 11 research and development partners, 12 partners from the industry, and 3 partners working on communication, dissemination, and exploitation. This includes the Federation of European Aquaculture Producers, SIGEAN. I am a member of SIGEAN. SIGEAN has the different institutes in the Mediterranean, the institute from Zaragoza, where I am from, and also the Institute of Bari, where one of my colleagues attending the webinar that you see is Giada Minini, comes from. There are also 2 other institutes, one in France, in Montpellier, and the other one in Hania, in the island of Crete. So the objective of the NewTechAqua project is to expand and diversify aquaculture production of finfish, mollusks, and microalgae by developing and validating technological advance, resilient, and sustainable application. In this project, we have worked with the most important finfish species, as it is salmon, trout, sea bass, and sardine, and also in 4 economically emerging emerging species. I wouldn't say new species. I would say better emerging species like amberjack, migre, sole, and mallet. Two other species of mollusk, oyster and mussels, and on microalga species. And the topics that we addressed were on nutrition, production technology, information, development of new products, genetics, sustainability, awareness. Those were the thematics that we were addressing. So let's go to the webinar and the program that we are offering you today. We are starting with this introduction that I am initially addressing. I am the Fisheries and Aquaculture Administrator from Sijan Zaragoza. My colleague Giada Minini from Sijan Bari is with us. And also Luis Guerrero, Senior Researcher in IRTA, the Food Institute of Research and Agrofood Technology from Catalonia, researching on food quality and technology. He's joining us. After our presentations, we will start with thematic contributions, starting with Laura López, PhD researcher in consumer behavior from IRTA. Luis Guerrero, continue with Laura with making a quality approach and Luis a quantitative approach about this question about perception of knowledge about current aquaculture practices. Laura López Mas will continue about how to generate new mechanisms to increase consumer awareness about aquaculture and its sustainability. And thereafter, we have our guest, let's say, a speaker coming from the project FutureEUAqua. Is one of the sister projects of this European Age 2020 call. Themistoklis Altintzoglou is a researcher in consumer research at Nofima, and he's going to make a presentation about consumer and at the end, Luis Guerrero, as moderator, I will help him. He might also address issue about the upcoming activities that the project is having just to find. There's a practical issue for those that are following us today, that you are attendees. I can say that we don't see you, but we know that you are there. And you will have the chance to make questions. And for that, in the Zoom platform that we are using today, there are two tools or two utilities that you can use. One is the chat, and the other is the question and answer tool. If you have a technical question, let's say I have problems with whatever, or I'm going to leave, I want to say goodbye, or here I am, or you want to have a chat with a colleague, you can use the chat. But for questions and answers, please use the questions and answer tool, because we are going to look preferentially to that tool. Well, I think that that's all, and I can pass the floor to Luis, that maybe you can continue with the introduction, and then we pass to Laura. No, I think that is the first speakers. I don't know, Luis, you would like to mention about something about the objective of your task in NewTechAqua.
Yeah, okay. So thank you, Bernardo, and good morning, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank Bernardo for organizing this workshop and for giving us the opportunity to be here today with all of you. As you already know, the presentation that we have for today belongs to two different Horizon 2020 projects. One of them is called NewTechAqua, as Bernardo already mentioned, and the other one is called FutureEUAqua. If I'm right, I think that the FutureEUAqua is already finished. I'm not totally sure. And in the case of the NewTechAqua, as Bernardo already mentioned, the project is almost at the end of the. We are almost at the end of the project, and also at the end of the planned activities. And for this reason, we have plenty of information that we would like to share with you. Obviously, we have some time constraints today, so the workshop is planned for 2 hours. And for this reason, we are going to give you just an overall overview of the more relevant findings, as well as some of comments about the ongoing and future activities at the end of the workshop. When Bernardo contacted us to define the program for today, we decided trying to cover not only the main activities already done, but also showing the wide range of techniques and approaches that we have been using, as you will see later on. So, as you will see in the next presentations, we include exploratory qualitative research, such as focus group. We also include different surveys trying to capture the quantitative side of the consumer research, and also some more complex and probably innovative techniques linking co-creation processes and creative tasks as well. So this is more or less what we have planned for today, and I hope that you will enjoy the seminar. And I also want to thank all of you for being here, obviously, and for your time. And regarding my responsibilities here at IRTA, I'm responsible for the consumer and sensory analysis lab. So our main activity, not only in this project, but also in other EU projects that we are participating, is mainly focused on trying to measure and also to change consumer behavior. That I can tell you that is not an easy task, but we try to do our best. And today you are going to have the opportunity to see some of these activities that we have been doing in the NewTechAqua project. And this is all from my side at the moment. I don't know, Bernardo, if you want to introduce the different speakers or.
Well, I have already introduced Laura, who is the next speaker. Laura, as I say, is a PhD researcher in consumer behavior from IRTA, and is going to talk about the quality approach as regards the work they've done on perception and knowledge of current European aquaculture. So please, Laura, you can share the screen and start. Thank you.
Okay, so I hope that you could see my screen. Is everything okay?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay. So first of all, many thanks also for giving us the opportunity to be here today and to present the results that we obtained within the NewTechAqua project. So again, thank you. So let's start with the first presentation of today. As Bernardo mentioned, it's entitled Perception and Knowledge of Current European Aquaculture Practices. But first of all, let me introduce myself. I am a food engineer, and currently I am finishing my PhD at IRTA on consumer behavior, and I focus most of the research of my thesis within this project. So I'm very happy to be here today sharing the results. So first of all, let's start with a brief introduction of the importance of listening consumers. So because producers can have the most marvelous product, but if consumers do not like it, it's at the end doomed to fail. Sometimes these consumers have a worse perception of aquaculture or farm fish when we compare with wild fish. And sometimes this worst perception is translated into lower consumption. No? Indeed, in EU, aquaculture fish consumption is around 25% of the total, the global, including aquaculture and wild fish. But if we see the figures of global aquaculture fish consumption is around 26%. So maybe something is going on here in Europe. Therefore, understanding consumers is key for the development of the entire sector in Europe. Then we had two objectives in this task. First of all, we use a qualitative approach to understand consumers' perception and knowledge of European aquaculture practices, but also its sustainability and the new technologies that were studied within the NewTechAqua project. And also we use this quantitative approach that later my colleague Luis will explain to validate the results obtained through this survey, through this quantitative approach. So let's start with the qualitative approach. We, as a methodology, we use focus group we conducted 3 focus groups in 3 different countries, in Spain, in France, and in Italy, in which 8 consumers took part. And these were the criteria, the recruiting criteria that we used to select those consumers. As some of you already might know, a focus group is just a group of people, in this case, 8 people who discuss about a specific topic, in this case, aquaculture. And this discussion is moderated, led by a moderator who generally follows a very structured guide to allow the comparison between the 3 countries in which this focus group were conducted. Later on, we will discuss each of the parts of this guide, the structure of the focus group. So first of all, we start each focus group with a brief introduction of the project and just a warm-up, easy questions to allow participants to feel more comfortable during the session. And an easy question, for example, is just we give them a template and ask them to tell us which is the 3 aspects that they look for when they go to buy fish, and which are the 3 main aspects that they try to avoid. And the results that we obtain, mostly all participants from all countries look for fish freshness, a near origin, and having good organoleptic properties, while they try to avoid unknown species or extra processed fish, high prices, and also fish with bones. And also other aspects were only mentioned in some of the countries. But going to the point of our presentation, we also ask consumers about aquaculture practices and new technologies, and we focus on the technologies that currently are being used, are being studied in this NewTechAqua project. We divided them in 3 main themes. The first one is the new aquaculture production systems, which include aquaponics, recirculation aquaculture system, and also biofloc technology. The second theme is related with new aquaculture managing technologies, including artificial intelligence, electrochemical biosensor, and also prediction models. And finally, the last theme, the third one, is related with new processing technologies once the fish is in the industry, in the factory, to try to extend the shelf life of the product, because we already know that the short shelf life of the fish is one of the main drawbacks of this product. So we focus on 3 novel technologies to process these fish, which include high hydrostatic pressure, pulsed electric files, and cold gas plasma. So with all this information, what do we ask to consumers? First of all, that is very likely that no one knows which these technologies means, but what we wanted to know is that they told the first thing that come to their mind, just without much thought, just saying aloud what these technologies conveys to them. And in addition, we asked them if some of these technologies appear on the level of a fish product, just as a claim, for example, how they will rate it, positively, negatively, or just neutral. So let's see which results did we obtain. If we focus on the first theme in aquaponics, first of all, we compare the results that we obtained in the 3 different countries in which focus groups were conducted, and we see that, for example, aquaponics was related in Spain with hydroponics, or plantation techniques, algae, greenhouse, irrigation, and growth control. But the perception was negative because it was an unknown topic. While in France, for example, the perception was opposite. No, in general, consumers have a good perception because they associate aquaponics with a natural, sustainable, closed circuit, eco-responsible, and avoid waste. What French participant highlight about this aquaponics is that they feel positive about this prefix aqua, and Italian has also good perception. So moving to recirculation aquaculture system, here is a curious case. In Spain, we have a dichotomy, two groups of consumers. The one that has a negative perception of these RAS systems if it means dirty water or not renewed water. On the contrary, if it means that it's a sustainable system, their perception was positive. So that's a curious thing, while in France they were neutral about this technique. And finally, biofloc technology, it was perceived in France and in Italy as a positive technology because of the prefix bio. Therefore, how we communicate to consumers, this highlights how important it is. So moving to the second theme, the new aquaculture managing technologies, and more in detail to artificial intelligence, we could see that in general the perceptions are good, probably because nowadays this artificial intelligence is almost everywhere, with this ChatGPT and so on, that these are words that start to being more familiar to consumers. And here just highlighting how Italian participants were in favor of this technology, of this managing technology, as they associate with smart, with progress, with safer, with keeping standards, and with better management systems. If we move to electrochemical biosensor, just highlighting that their Spanish and French participants were neutral about this technique because they were unknown. They have no knowledge, previous knowledge on what this means, and they related mainly with control. Here you could see that Spain participant related with fish control, with production control, also with fish control and water control. And also related with this control, and moving to these prediction models, here prediction model is a prediction model consumers also related with control, but maybe with higher yields is the other control, but also higher yields and prediction. Because mathematics is the word that convey in general a positive sensation to feeling to consumers. And as you could see, Italian participants were the most open to this to use these managing technologies as they convey good perceptions to consumers. And finally, if we move to the third theme, to high hydrostatic pressures, then the things change a little. In general, the perception were neutral or negative. And for example, here in Spain, this pressure consumers associate with trying to simulate living conditions of fishes in the deep sea. Just imagine how consumers' mind work. So it was very shocking, that they try to explain this or give sense to this processing technology. While in France, for example, they perceive negatively because they are related with welfare. That they think that this processing technology might affect the well-being of the fishes. Going to pulse electric fields, in general, the perception was negative. And just as a way of example, in Spain, it was consumers think that it was related with the slaughter of the fishes instead of the processing of the fish to try to reduce the microorganisms. No, so in consumers' mind, they think that they use this current to slaughter the fishes. No, or also as is done with other animal managing, that they apply little currents to fishes to keep them awake to increase its growth. It's really amazing how consumers might end from just pull selected fields to all these ideas. And finally, coal gas plasma, it was anonymously perceived negatively because it is an unnatural, or just they associate with science fiction. So just to finish the focus group, we also inquired on their perception about fish sustainability. And just we asked them, what is fish sustainability for you? And here, if we focus on Spain, avoid overfishing and future generation were common in all the three countries, but also consumers associate this fish sustainability with not destroying the habitat, restocking of the fishes, having a good balance between caught and left fishes. Related with education, we focus we point out the importance of education in these sustainability issues, and also with a lower footprint or decrease the number of ships that go abroad to catch the fishes. And finally, the reduction of plastic, mainly on the packaging of the fish product. And moving to France, they also related this fish sustainability with avoiding overfishing and future generation. These were two key topics, but also with avoiding the extinction of these species, reintroducing of species that are extinct, or not fishing in certain areas, and also with long-term resources. And finally, in Italy, they related this fish sustainability with respect to environment, respect to animals, and also respect to work practices. And finally, to avoid the overexploitation of the resources. So, as a main conclusion of the three focus group sessions that we conducted in these three countries, we could say that understanding consumers' perception and opinions of new aquaculture production system, managing technologies and processing technologies might be the basis for future communication and marketing campaigns. Also might be useful to promote their general acceptance, especially in those aspects identified as more controversial, or maybe it could be the way in which we provide this information to consumers. As you see, for example, the prefix bio or the prefix aqua generate a good feeling to consumers, even though they don't know anything about this technology or managing or processing or production system. No? And finally, this is key for guaranteeing the acceptance of these new aquaculture technologies. So that's all from my side.
Okay, thank you, Laura. So now we move to Luis, that he's going to continue with this question about perception and knowledge of European aquaculture practices, but he's going to have a more quantitative approach. No, just one recommendation for you that you are following, as we are having presentation one after another, and the debate comes at the end. If you have doubts, questions, you can use the question and answer and start writing your doubts or question there. That will facilitate us the moderation of the discussion. So, Luis, please.
Okay, thank you, Bernardo. I'm going to try to share my screen, my presentation. Share. And
we see the working mode. And
now it's okay?
Now it's okay.
Okay, so good morning again. Well, Laura has just commented on the main results of the more exploratory part. This is the qualitative analysis. And as you can see here, I will focus more on the quantitative part, which is based on the results Laura has just explained, but focus it or take it from a more quantitative approach. So here you have some information about me. Most probably the most interesting one is my email address, since it's the easiest way to contact me for any issue related or not with the NewTechAqua project. As I have said, the activity, this activity is the continuity of the exploratory work we have just seen. So logically, both the background and the objectives are the same as Laura already explained. So in this case, for the qualitative approach, the main objective is just to validate the results that we obtain in the qualitative approach by means of a quantitative survey. And the survey was done in 5 EU countries, as I'm going to explain to you now. So very briefly, first of all, I would like to tell you about the main methodologic features of this study, so you can know how we did it. So as you can see here, a total of 2,145 consumers took part in the study. And these consumers were distributed evenly across 5 European countries. From left to right, you can see those countries were Spain, France, Italy, Germany, and Poland. And obviously, there are several reasons behind the choice of these countries. First of all was their size, also the fish consumption in each of these countries, and also the existence of inland aquaculture. These were mainly the main reasons. But we also took into account other more practical issues, such as the existence of native colleagues with expertise in consumer behavior, who could help us in the translation of the questionnaires. Obviously, translation of these questionnaires when we perform a cross-cultural studies is a key point, in order to be sure that the answer of the consumer is not affected by the translation, and we are having results that at the end can be compared in an easy and reliable way. Participants has to be over 18 years old. We have gender balance. All of them were regular consumers of fish and responsible or co-responsible for purchase and preparation of food at home. This is normally what we used to have in this kind of service, in this kind of studies. Well, the questionnaire that we used was quite long and include numerous psychometric scales, preferably those already validated when available. Not in all the cases there was an existing validated scale, but when we have the opportunity to use this kind of validated scales, we always it was always our first choice. So I'm going to focus mainly on those aspects more related to the sustainability and the perception of the different technologies and methods explored within the NewTechAqua project. In this first figure, you can see the participants' perception of the sustainability of farm and wild fish by country. The straight line with capital letters show the overall differences between the two obtained methods. And as you can see, both methods are considered sustainable, as the average value is higher than the central point of the scale, 4. So both were sustainable. But wild fish is perceived as significantly more sustainable than farm fish. Then we will try to look into this, the reasons behind this answer. We can also see notable differences between countries and also their interactions. For instance, Polish consumers are those who perceive wild as more sustainable, and Spanish consumers those who perceive farm fish as more sustainable. And we have, for instance, French consumers that seems to have the worst perception of the aquaculture in general. I have to say that, in my opinion, this is a quite surprising result, because I think it's curious to see that there are huge differences between countries, even despite we are supposed to be culturally homogeneous countries all around Europe. But as you can see here, this is not what we obtain. All this regarding this sustainability issue. As you can see here, we also try to let me check, because We also, as you can see here, we also ask consumers about the aspects that they took into account when assessing the sustainability of fish in general. And as you can see here, in this case, although significant, there are differences. The differences between countries are quite low. In general, the production method, I mean, if the fish was wild or farm, the origin of the animals, the animal of the species, the labeling, the price, the logo, or even the recommendations from third parties were considered as relevant aspects when assessing the sustainability. The only aspect that show values below the midpoint of the scale in some cases was the advertising banners, especially in France, as you can see here in this picture, in this graph. In this case, and in this slide, you can see that we also assess consumer attitudes toward the different new aquaculture production systems, as already Laura mentioned. In this case, we cover the aquaponics, the RAS system, the biofloc, and the eloxidas. And to rate them, we decided to use, in order to assess this attitude, we decided to use a semantic differential scale that, as you can see here, is made up of various adjectives. And but obviously, first we explain each of these technologies to the participants in a simple way, in order to provide them information about these technologies, because obviously I think that most of the participants had no idea about what these technologies were. So first we explained them to them in an easy way. As you can see here in this figure, all the systems were evaluated positively, with the only exception of the natural character of the eloxidas, because it's below the central point of the scale. And as expected, all the systems were rated as unknown, as Laura already observed in the qualitative approach. Here you can see the results by country by country. In this case, you can see the results for aquaponics. And for instance, you can see that the worst perception was for Germany in this case. And if we move, for instance, to the next system, that is RAS, again, you can see that Germany and also France are those with the worst perception of or the worst attitude towards these systems. Something similar happens for the biofloc technology. And again, the same more or less for the eloxidas. So as you have seen for the four technologies, Germany and especially France are the countries with the lowest scores compared to Poland. Also with the highest perception about the knowledge of this technology. So maybe the reason of because Polish consumers score these technologies better than the other countries, or have a better or more positive attitude towards these technologies, maybe it can be explained because they seem to have more knowledge about this all these four technologies that we study. Okay, another aspect that we decided to explore in more depth was the beliefs associated with the sustainability in a comparative way between wild and farmed fish. So we decided to use 19 beliefs in total that address sustainability both in general aspects. For this case, we use 4 beliefs, and also for each of the 3 main pillars that make up the concept of sustainability. So at the end, we had 5 different beliefs covering the environmental side of the sustainability, 5 more beliefs covering the social sustainability, and finally 5 more beliefs covering the economic sustainability. And here you can see also an example of this type of sentences that we use, and also the evaluation scale, the Likert scale that we use in this case. These slides show the main results obtained in a graphical way. As you can see, wild fish only show significantly higher values for animal welfare and organic character and higher environmental damage. And if you want to have this these figures in more detail, you can look at this table, and also you can compare the results between countries. As you can see, there are differences between countries, even though they were rather small, but significant in many cases. For instance, the highest values were obtained for animal welfare in the case of wild fish, and for ensuring fair prices in the case of aquaculture. This is the main values for each of these different beliefs. Okay, I know that this table is quite difficult to digest, but don't worry, because the presentation will be recorded, and then later on you will have the opportunity to check this and to pause the video and to see all these results in more detail and more calmly. So we also decided to explore the degree of concern of the participants of the different technologies. As Laura already mentioned, we grouped these technologies in 3 groups: the aquaculture managing technologies, the new fish processing technologies, and finally the new aquaculture provision systems. So it's interesting, if you look at the results, it's interesting to note that the highest concern is for those technologies that are applied directly to the product. So I think that this is quite nice results. I mean, it's some of the consumers that are not worried about or not much worried about how we treat the animals or what we do with the animals before the slaughtering, but then but it seems that they are much more concerned about what we do with the fillets, with the final product that they are supposed to eat. Well, in almost all the cases, these technologies generated some concern, as you can see here, with values higher than 4 in all cases, even in those technologies that were previously explained to them. So it seems that even we explain to them what these technologies consist of, it seems that this has a great impact on the concern of the participants. Finally, the last thing I wanted to show you are the results about the food technology neophobia scale. I think that this scale is quite relevant in our case, because at the end we are dealing with different technologies. So yeah, this scale has been used on numerous occasions and has been verified and validated many times. So the scale is a well-known one and consisted of 13 items that are divided in 4 different constructs. The first construct, or the first dimension, focus on whether or not new technologies are necessary. The second one focus on the perception of risk. The third one on the health-related aspects, and the last one on the role of information and media. And as you can see here, the overall results. And if you look at the solid line, and also by the country, you can see the main results that we obtained. In general, participants consider that the information they normally receive is not totally unbiased. So it seems that they don't believe or they don't trust too much on the information that they receive and on the media. They also believe that these new technologies are not necessary, and that they can represent a general risk, but not from a health side. So in general, they are regarded as a healthy approaches or healthy technologies. So in general, we can say that participants show a certain degree of neophobia regarding this figure towards all these types of technologies. As you can imagine, obviously the results that I have just shown you are global and do not represent the existing different points of view. Therefore, we decided to perform a cluster analysis in order to identify segments of consumers, and we were able to identify 4 different clusters of consumers based on their response to the food technology scale. These clusters were named as haters, lovers, pragmatics, and doubtful consumers. Here you can see a short, but I think that quite clear description of this of each of these clusters. And as you can see, this description of the clusters is what justify the name that we assigned to them. For instance, the lovers group was made of respondents who considered the media to be unbiased, that the new technologies are necessary, and that they help people to live healthier lives. So for the reason we call this group the lovers of the new technologies. With respect to the importance of each of these clusters, the haters cluster was the largest one and comprised about 43% of the participants, almost half of the sample, and followed by the pragmatists, which represent 33% of the sample. And unfortunately, lovers only accounted for 10% of the consumers. It was the smallest cluster. And then doubtful people were also about 30% of the participants. But if we put together lovers and pragmatics in darker blue, because these two are the two groups that seems to be more open to accepting new technologies, altogether, these two groups represent 43% of the participants in our survey. So in this case, it seems that could be a promising result. At least we want to think so. Okay, and now just to summarize all this quantitative part, I have some conclusions that I think that can be drawn from this study. The first one is that this study allows us to identify which aspects associated with sustainability of aquaculture are worst perceived by general public, especially animal welfare and organic character, which curiously are both grown and in which give us the option to working on them and try to change these beliefs with the information systems that we are considered most appropriate, and which Laura will explain to you after my presentation. So the second take-home message is that it's better to focus on specific aspects of the sustainability than to treat it as a whole, because sustainability is not a one-dimensional construct, and the overall assessment does not reflect the true motivation and the true reasons behind the behavior of the participants. And finally, I think that it's important also to highlight the existence of segments or group of consumers with different degrees of concern and acceptance of new technologies that can be applied to aquaculture and obviously to its products. Knowing these segments should help us to design information and even intervention strategies that are more oriented to each of these clusters that we have just identified. And well, I think that this is all that I wanted to tell you in brief about the survey that we carry out. Obviously, we have explored many more aspects, but obviously I can't go any further here today because I don't have time. So thank you very much for your attention.
Okay, thank you very much, Luis. So we continue with the presentations. Now is the turn to Laura López Mas again, who's going to talk about the generation of new mechanisms to increase consumer awareness of European aquaculture and its sustainability. So let me remind you that the question and answer tool is open. There is already a question that we will take note from Madi Abdel Wahed from Egypt, and that we will address at the end. Thank you. So Laura, please.
Okay, thank you, Bernardo. Hello again. I hope that you could see my screen. Everything is fine?
Yes, yes, it is.
Okay, so let's start with this presentation that is entitled Generation of New Mechanisms to Increase Consumer Awareness of European Aquaculture and also its Sustainability. So also to start with a brief introduction, no matter how important a message is, if it's not able to reach the proper audience, and despite of the multiple advantages of aquaculture that we all already know, these messages often do not reach the general population because there is a gap between experts and consumers. So finding these new ways to reach consumers is crucial to assure the full development of the aquaculture sector and also to promote its consumption. As we've seen, it's much lower in the European Union than in the rest of the world. So the main objective of this task was to explore these new potential mechanisms to increase consumers' awareness of European aquaculture, but also its sustainability, and also the acceptance of the new aquaculture technologies, practices, and products that we already see in the previous presentation. So let's start with this part, the creative session. As Luis and myself just explained, we know we have some guidelines on what to communicate to consumers. The problem is how we can reach them. And one of the best methods to try to find these mechanisms to reach consumers is involve the different stakeholders in creating these mechanisms. And how we did that? We conducted 6 creative sessions, also in Spain, France, and Italy. But in this case, we have 2 different participants. On the one side, stakeholders, in particular experts of the aquaculture sectors. We have farm technicians, researchers, professors, and so on, but that they have a deep knowledge of aquaculture. And on the other side, we have consumers that has to meet these criteria. In particular, they have that has no knowledge about aquaculture. So a creative session, here is like a focus group, but in this case, the aim of this session is different. The aim of this session is to generate some ideas. In this case, these new mechanisms to increase the consumers' awareness of aquaculture. And also, as a normal focus group, we also built up a moderator's guide that also was very structured to compare the results between countries. So let's go more in detail on this moderator's guide. First of all, as I just mentioned, the aim of this task was so extended. So it was very vast, and then we needed to divide the topics between the sessions and also between the countries. So we decided to have one common topic, that is European aquaculture, and also to have a second topic that it was balanced, presented in a balanced order. And the question is why we need these topics to use as an input to trigger participants' creativity, because of course participants might be creative, but creative on what? So that's what we provided them with this topic to start build ideas with consumers. And in the first topic, what we explain to consumers. First of all, what is aquaculture? The aquaculture that we conduct here in Europe, and that aquaculture not only involves fishes, but also mollusks, crustaceans, and algae. Regarding the sustainability of aquaculture, as you already know, we explained the 3 different pillars that construct this concept. Regarding to these new products, these processing technologies, we explain them what is high hydrostatic pressure, what is pulse electric fields, and cold gas plasma. Also related with new aquaculture technologies, this aquaculture production system, we explain in detail what a RAS system is, aquaponics, biofloc, and finally eloxidas. And finally, this topic, the new practices that is related with the new managing technologies, we explain to consumers what electrochemical biosensors are, also what artificial intelligence is, what prediction models and satellite models are. So here we have the sum up of the different countries in which we conducted this creative session, the 2 sessions that we conducted in each country, one with consumers and one with experts, and also how this common topic, to remember that European aquaculture was the common topic in all the countries, but the one that was changing, one was balanced, was the second topic. For example, in Spain, the first session was with consumers, the first topic was aquaculture, and then the sustainability, and so on. This is more or less the schema that we followed in all the creative sessions. So let's back to the moderator's guide and how the sessions worked. First of all, we started the creative sessions giving a brief introduction on what creativity is, because sometimes participants feel a little bit shy, also in focus group, but with creativity is even stronger, this feeling. So telling participants that no, everyone can be creative, not only children or artists, but also they can be creative, and just giving some tips or some rules of basic rules of creative session. For example, criticism is not allowed. You need to build up on others' ideas, and so on. And then we started with a brief introduction. In this case, as I told you, using Spain as an example, and with consumers, the first topic was European aquaculture, and we just showed a little PowerPoint on what is this. And then we use a creative technique. In this case, it's called brand writing. And it consists just in giving a template to participants in which they just have to write down on the paper, write down ideas on how we can increase consumers' awareness and acceptance of the topic, European aquaculture, in this case. And once we have the participant one just have wrote down the ideas, they pass the paper to the participant on the left. And the participant on the left read the idea generated by the other participant and try to build or to improve the ideas that the previous participant just wrote down. And this is repeated many times, and at the end we have a pool of numerous ideas on how we can increase this consumers' awareness of the aquaculture. Then we just explain the second topic, in this case the aquaculture sustainability, and we proceed exactly the same using the same technique that in the previous topic. Okay, and then to help participants to generate other ideas on different ways of generating ideas, we use the technique that called direct analysis. It consists just giving blank template with 3 columns to participants. On the first column, we ask them to think some event that just change their mindset, something that impact them. For example, and it has not to be related with food. It may, but it is not mandatory. For example, a person with some knee problems that just buy an electric bike. On the second, they should write some ideas. On the second column, we ask them to think what makes this event relevant. For example, just this person that has his new bike has more freedom or can enjoy the nature or feeling alive and so on. And on the third column, we ask them to describe how the relevance of this event might be applied to increase the awareness of the topic that we have discussed. In the case of this bike, of this nature feeling alive, an example is creating an experience or visiting an aquaculture farm, swim with fishes, and so on. And this last column will be the one that we wanted to arrive, starting from the previous one. And finally, we are additionally use the empathic thinking, and this technique is just we show a picture of a person, and then we ask participants to be in their skin. What do we ask them? We ask them to imagine that they are the person depicted in the picture, and how we can reach, how we can increase the awareness of this person about aquaculture and its sustainability. And we use different pictures as a trigger to start to trigger this creativity. And finally, what results did we obtain about these creative sessions? So we conducted a pseudo-triangulation process to group all the ideas generated. In total, more than 180 communication mechanisms were generated by participants that we group in these 9 dimensions. And here you could see the map of these 9 dimensions that were advertising, public relations, sales promotion, events, ubiquitous, and also events at aquaculture facilities. We divided these events and experience into different dimensions. Additionally, education, packaging or products, media, and finally a general category with those mechanisms that can be classified in the other dimensions. And then we just color it according to the country that they came from. Here the green corresponds to Italy, red is for Spain, and blue is for France. And those dimensions or mechanisms that has multiple colors means that they were mentioned in multiple countries. But here you could see that more or less the most of mechanisms were common, except, for example, here you could see that some of them only were mentioned in Italy, for example, and so on. And here, just as a way of example, because I don't want to extend myself in this part, but let's see more in detail some of the ones that are my favorite. Which were the results that participants create on how we can, these mechanisms on how we can get consumers. And as I told you, this event and experience dimension was divided in ubiquitous, it means in everywhere, or in aquaculture facilities. And look at what they propose that we can do to communicate with consumers. For example, going to a farm and do farm facilities and do some corporate events. It's like, instead of going to a restaurant, we can go to a farm facility to, I don't know, celebrate something. Also, these farm facilities can promote doing physical activities, fishing or swimming or walking tours, even cuddle the fishes. That's a good one. Also related with these aquaculture facilities, some of them ask for organizing some guided tours or visits, or open freely visits, and also use these aquaculture facilities as a vacation spot. These are normally in outside, so maybe it's a good place to have to park the motorhome or do a summer camp or campsite, and so on. Also, in these facilities, there can be done some tastings and maybe invite some chefs to do these activities. And also, these guided tours might be virtual or on boat, and also educational with scholars, family, or only for adults without children. Just here, if we focus on education, also some good ideas were related with, for example, doing some board games about aquaculture, or doing citizen science, scientific dissemination, or as you might buy these home kits, I don't know, for being a scientific, maybe some home kit related with designing a RAS system in your house is a good idea to encourage young people, or not that young, to know what aquaculture is and how this new production systems works. Finally, also, well, just at the schools and universities, games, and so on. And finally, the category miscellaneous. I really like this because it was there were very good ideas on how to communicate this aquaculture. For example, have some fun T-shirts with some fun messages, or creating a song, having a corner in the supermarket, or creating an aquaculture hero, or even adopt an aquaculture fish. Just a few examples of what consumers and also stakeholders generate during this creative session that, as you can see, they were very creative. So as a final conclusion, just saying that this creative session were useful to generate a big pool of new strategies to increase this consumers' awareness, not only of aquaculture and sustainability, but also on these new aquaculture technologies, practices, and products developed and studied within the NewTechAqua project. And this session also allowed to gather consumers and experts' points of view. And finally, that this information can be useful for producers and marketers to choose the best channel or channels to reach consumers with the final aim of designing more effective aquaculture communication and promotional campaigns. So that's all from my side.
Thank you very much, Laura. So as I said before, I repeat, you have the option of questions and answers to start writing your comments or questions for the forthcoming open discussion that we will have at the end. Now we continue with the presentations, and then I invite Mr. Altintzoglou to join us. Share the screen, and he has been invited from the project FutureEUAqua, and he's going to present the results of the projects, specifically in consumer reaction to social media communication about sustainable aquaculture in Europe. So, Temis, please.
Yeah, thank you very much for the introduction, and also thank you for putting effort in pronouncing my difficult name, but everybody's using Themis, so if we meet in person, just go for that. So the topic is very close to what was done in NewTechAqua, and I was really interested in following up to the presentations just before by our colleagues, and it's a very good base to start now with my presentation, because we did very similar work and we have very similar results in FutureEUAqua. So FutureEUAqua is, like I said, has a similar structure. It was, it had an extension, so but it was finished exactly like at the end of the last month. We have also very similar goals and aims and a long list of partners. So I think I will not bother you much with that, because you can find information online. And we'll go straight in and to the consumer awareness part, where I worked on. And like I said, we had some surveys and partly of like trying to understand what consumers want and how consumers perceive European aquaculture, and we used that to design an experiment that was actually mostly focusing on how finding out how we could best communicate to consumers using social media. The main part of this experimental survey, it was online, it was part of a survey, was to actually test out two things. One was factual information versus emotional information, and the second is the use of images or without images. The factual information, you can see the yellow text is the part that is different between the conditions. So as an example, the factual information was sustainable aquaculture in Europe is growing in full control of new feed sources and water quality to deliver high quality fish. And when it was with an image, it was with an image that's on the left here of the screen. So the production system, how do you call them, graphics. The emotional at the bottom right here was sustainable aquaculture in Europe is making sure that we and our children can enjoy tasty and healthy fish in the future. And when it was combined with an image, it was the picture on the left here with the parent and the child touching food and like being in the kitchen. And of course, like in every experiment, we had a control condition that we made as balanced as possible, and it was sustainable aquaculture in Europe is growing with focus on new feed sources, water quality, fish quality, and welfare. And this condition had no image to go with it. If we look at a bit some technical information that is also included in this first result slide is that we looked at 5 countries, the UK, France, Germany, Spain, and Italy. We had 500 participants from each of the countries, so 2,500 in total. Yeah, at the figure now, you see we used an agreement scale from 1 to 7 on how much the consumers liked the 5 social media posts. And at the bottom of the figure, you see that on the left was the factual post with the picture, and then it was factual without the picture. In the middle was the control, then the emotional, and then the emotional with the picture. These were, of course, randomized and randomly presented to the consumers, but we chose to show them like this because it's like the lowest values on the left and the highest values on the right, so it helps reading the figure. The different colors of lines represent the different countries, and we see here a tendency for a clear tendency for liking the emotional posts, and in some cases more or less a bit of a trend to like the use of a picture as well. So we looked further to see, okay, these are the differences per country. What about if we compare the genders? And we see that the figure is the figure basics are the same, so same scale, same question about liking the posts and everything. So the only change is that instead of comparing countries, we're comparing genders. And we see that there was a higher liking for all of the posts for females compared to males. Just a clarification, these figures show the whole length of the scale, so from 1 to 7. And the 4 was the middle part of the scale. So we knew that, and we thought, what about age groups? So same figure, same information, except for the lines representing the 3 age groups in our sample, in our population. And there we see some similarities when it comes to the factual and factual with photo part. And then they start changing when they're closer to control. And then as their liking increases, there is a bit of variation in between the age groups on how much they like the emotional posts or the emotional posts with a photo. And the most clear result is that the age group 35 to 54 likes the emotional with photo more than the 55 plus. But something interesting happening there is that the age group 18 to 34 actually like the emotional post more when it is not with a photo. And that's something that I will come back later when I come to the recommendations we gave for a communication strategy. We also had a qualitative part, and this is just from the UK and just word cloud. So it's not a thorough analysis for those of you that are in the consumer research field, but it is a quick overview of some explanations of why, for example, the emotional and photo could be liked more. And there we see that this, because it is food, there is a picture. It looks tasty, it looks colorful, it's clear, it's fish, it's informative, there's children, it looks healthy, it's simple, it's good, and all the positive words are larger in this word cloud. And on the contrary, when we try to figure out why would they dislike the other extreme, so condition, the factual condition with photo, it's again, not again, it's the opposite. It's actually kind of negative words being larger in this word cloud. So it's confusing, it's details, it's much, it's small, it's difficult, it's complicated, dislike, and words like that. So that was kind of a confirmation of the quantitative part with semi-qualitative part, exploratory part. I forgot to clarify that this was not, these words come from open-ended questions. And open-ended questions is when we ask consumers to write down or let us know in the questionnaire of the 3 words that come to their mind when they listen when they hear a topic, or in this case, it was why do I dislike this post? And then we use only the first word. Now that's a trick for making use of the top of mind thoughts. So the first thought that comes to mind when you know you still have some room to reply for more. Yeah, and I basically decided to show some of the results, but mostly focus on the recommendations we gave for a communication strategy that actually took place within the time frame of the project, and we measure its effect and everything. But I think it's very useful to share with you now the recommendations only, because this is something that could be taken further to, depending on who you are in the audience, could be taken further into a new communication strategy or into improving it in a new project. So the aim of the communication strategy now is to increase consumer awareness, perception, and acceptance of European aquaculture. So not to understand it as we did, and in all 3 projects, there were more projects, but the aim is to increase it. And we came to these recommendations based on scientific literature, evaluations of the effectiveness of previous and current communication campaigns, mostly in Europe, the consumer survey results from early tasks in our project, and the experiment I just presented. So we also used information from a previous project that Nofima coordinated as well, that was IRTA. And we find there that we need to raise awareness through a communication campaign. So it's, we found very low awareness, we need to do something about it. But previous campaigns showed us that we need to avoid a general approach to aquaculture and sustainability. So we need to begin by providing general information, but then we need to go into specific details about the production systems. So for example, for organic, that is becoming more familiar. And more specific details about the effects on the environment. And a familiar example there is the carbon footprint that most consumers start understanding what it is all about. We also found that we need to stimulate consumers' emotions from this experiment I just presented just earlier. And that is because this way we maximize the possibility to understand, like, and sympathize with the message. And if we add an image that matches the information, we can amplify consumers' emotional reactions. Some other ideas or recommendations we had from all this background work was that the UK and France are the most skeptical consumers, so we need to approach them differently than other countries, while Italian and Spanish consumers were the most positive. We also found a difference in Germany, that the consumers there were the ones that liked factual posts without an image more than than participants in other countries. But still in Germany, their highest liking was for emotional posts. So that doesn't mean that they preferred factual posts, but compared to the other countries, they were a little bit more positive about them. So all in all, emotional messaging should be used anyway. We also found that female consumers were more positive, so they could be targeted as influencers, so as a starting point. And we found that younger participants are less positive about pictures with emotional messages, and they could be targeted without images as part of the campaign. So the campaign basically should pay attention to all these different target groups and fine-tune the approach for each one of them. In general, we also found a low willingness to repost these social media messages we tested. So we realized that we need to motivate people to repost. It will not just happen automatically or out of enthusiasm. We also looked at what social media is being used the most, and we found that Facebook is the most frequently used by everyone. And we decided to focus the campaign on Instagram and Twitter, plus repost and forward in Facebook. That is because the younger consumers are easier reached through Instagram. And when we look at the group of 35 to 55 years old, they are easier to reach through Twitter. But all three social media platforms are used by all, so there are no extreme differentiations. So it is kind of the efficient, the recommendation for being efficient would be to create the post for one and then forward or like copy to the other two. As I said before, we saw that emotional messaging is liked because it is simple and informative, it has pleasant colors, it shows pictures of food, and the fish looks nice and tasty. On the other hand, the factual messaging is not the way to go because it looked complicated, confusing, a bit too detailed, unclear, cluttered, and difficult to interpret. So, yeah. If we look at other information or other results we found from our consumer survey, we could also add that the general social media communication strategy could focus on economic benefits of aquaculture for the local communities, because we found that even though it's a challenging topic, it received very positive ratings. So it kind of gives consumers a kind of a reality touch that besides all the impressions and the emotions, it also means jobs for where the production is located. We were hoping to have a very positive and clear image about animal and fish welfare, which I'm personally very interested in, and environmental pollution, but they seem to be sensitive issues, and in a quick and efficient social media campaign, these are topics that should be either avoided or should be handled with care or somehow introduced together with something else. And again, familiar and specific environmental issues like the carbon footprint is more effective. Now, if we look at how this communication strategy could be targeted to specific groups, we recommended to target policymakers with tweets on Twitter and a bit more technical language. And then carefully direct each of these posts towards specific groups, because I mean, policymakers are not one kind, like consumers are not one kind. On the other hand, young adults and teenagers could be targeted with a focus on the protection of nature for everyone, and not necessarily with a focus on children, because they don't have children yet potentially, or so this kind of information would not hit home for them as effectively as older participants. When it comes to the industry, it could be more effective if the communication or a social media campaign specifically would include information about labeling and advice on how to use that and how effective that can be. And there we have some reports you can find online and published papers from eye tracking studies in the project. And finally, we recommended visual elements like emojis to be added to the social media posts. But of course, they also have to be adapted in terms of amount and seriousness, depending on the target group. This is something that is very relevant for the project, but I thought since this presentation is focused on all these recommendations and kind of like the practical pathway we followed in the project, I thought this is also an interesting part to show. And it is our action plan. So we first made a detailed plan of specific social media posts that were in accordance with increasing awareness of aquaculture in Europe. Then FEAP, that's also part of NewTechAqua, did the dissemination in terms of reports, infographics, videos, and pictures. And then we try to attract the attention of consumers to these dissemination elements. FEAP, together with media and communication experts at our institute, Nofima, created content for the social media posts. And we made sure there were sources there, literature, recent and current communication campaigns from the FutureEUAqua service and experience. So we used all the information we have to create these social media posts, but also to use them as sources of when consumers wanted to read more. The communication material had followed a bit of a sequence of attention or attraction, or how to call it, like bait. So we need to start with a broad focus on aquaculture, and then focus specifically on current and relevant information, and then go into production methods, environmental effects, benefits, and challenges. And this way, somehow, it is easier for the general public or consumers in Europe to come into the specifics of the topic. And as one final slide, I think it's also interesting for you to see one pager or one slide there, if you can call it like that, that we use to summarize all this advice that could be shared among us, and also as a reminder of what was the plan which we followed in the project. And this is what we did. So this information is basically summarizing what I just presented here today. And again, it's a lot of information, but if you watch the video later on, you can pause or make a screenshot and use it the way you want.
Okay, thank you. Hey, had you finished, Miss?
Yes.
Okay, so thank you very much. So I invite all the panelists to switch on, well, be ready to switch on the microphone is ready. So Luis, you've been asked to be the moderator of the session. Okay. I don't know if you may like to make a short summary of the things that you think are more relevant for you.
Yeah, I don't know, because I see that in the program is described that some time slot for describing the next activity. So I was prepared for that. But if you think that we don't have time to do it, we can.
No, you can, because it's also communication and related with these issues that are being presented here. So
okay, so just let me have a very short presentation. I think we have 3 or 4 slides, no more than that, and then I will. Okay, can you see the?
Yes, I can. Okay.
Okay, perfect.
Please.
So before starting with, as I told you, with questions and discussions, yeah, I would like to give you an update of the status of the activities that we still have pending, as well as the dissemination work already done and to be done. So the last activity plan within our work package is to explore more effective ways of communicating sustainability and raising awareness of the aquaculture. So the first part of this activity is what Laura already explained to you. So this is identifying systems that can be reached by the end consumer more easily. And as we have just seen, this part is already finished. And from here, we have selected, I mean, from what Laura already explained, that these different systems of communicating the sustainability or increasing the awareness of the consumers. From all this pool of ideas, we selected 3 systems in order to approach consumers. The first system that we approach, that we choose, is to use the virtual reality. And for that, we are developing an interactive 360-degree video in which we will focus on aspects of sustainability and 2 of the technologies, because the video cannot be too long. So we decided just to include two technologies, the RAS and the aquaponics. The second system will be a more traditional one by means of a brochure or something like an infographic or something similar. And the last system that we are thinking is to communicate with consumers through a show cooking, in which the participants will receive information about the origin of the raw material, and also participants will be able to taste the products produced in this session. So in all 3 cases, the type of communication or the type of information that will be communicated will be exactly the same. And participants in this case will fill a questionnaire before starting the activities, the 3 activities. Just after finishing the activities, and then after 3 months of these activities, in order to assess the impact and also the memorization level of the information received. So the starting hypothesis here is that the most participatory systems probably will be those that will show the highest effectiveness in communicated messages, but you never know. So we will see the results. So we are planning to start with this activity after the summer. And as I already mentioned, this is the last activity within the NewTechAqua project. So as I said at the beginning of the session, we have explained to you some of the results that we have obtained. But obviously, if you are interested, you can find more information, for example, in these 2 papers, one of them about consumer beliefs and the other about the application of one of the technologies, in this case, high hydrostatic pressure in fish fillets. You can also find more details about our activity in, for instance, in oral papers that have been presented in the last 2 European aquaculture congresses in Madeira and in Rimini. And also some posters also presented in different places, in different congresses. And finally, 2 more communications that we are planning to present into Congress. One of them is going to be held in Girona by the 19th of June this month. And the other one is an international congress about consumer behavior and sensory analysis. It's called PAMBOR. That will be in Nantes in France. In this case, we have an oral presentation where we will explain some of the results that we already explained here today. So, and this is just what I wanted to show you. And finally, obviously, you have always the NewTechAqua web page where you can see different reports or different information about the activities that have been performed in the project. Not only in the work package dealing with communication or consumers, but also in the other work packages. So now, yeah, now it's okay. This is all that I wanted to show you. And now, Bernardo, if you think it's okay, we can start with the discussion.
Yeah. Okay. Let's. I've been reading the questions and answer, and also the chat. Because there is a question that also related with perception is from a colleague from Egypt. This is in the chat, I believe. It's Madi Abdel Wahed, who is saying that I don't know if that is in Egypt or in general. He says that about 20% of what is the fish that is consumed comes from aquaculture. And then he's asking about if the rest comes from natural fisheries. So I would like to comment on this because, the FAO statistics says that the seafood consumption coming from aquaculture is already more than 50%. But in some cases, aquaculture products on statistics are high. And let me give you an example. I remember that in Spain, not the the statistics from the ministry, which are talking about production, but those estimations about consumption, when they say, I don't know, maybe 20% comes from aquaculture, they refer to the local production of aquaculture, and the rest comes from either fisheries or imports. And here is where the imports are sometimes assumed that comes mainly from fisheries and not from aquaculture. So even some people working on the ministry think that maybe oysters, clams, shrimps came from fisheries and not from aquaculture. And that is a perception, no? I don't know if maybe that can open a small debate, or you may discuss or answer to this, Luis, Laura, or Temis. Temis, stand the hand.
Yeah.
So please.
I just want to add some results we have from a couple of recent EU projects that kind of support what you've just added as an answer to the question. And that is that I'm not sure if, the statistics, of course, the national statistics can be on aggregate levels and can be more correct than the consumer's perception. But on the consumer side, we find very low awareness of how the fish is actually produced, if the fish is wild or farmed, or and if we go even further to the type of production, the awareness is even much lower. So it depends on how you look at these percentages, but my impression is that knowing 25% doesn't mean that the rest is from another production, but I agree it is probably a lack of knowledge of what the rest is. That's my impression based on some recent work with it.
Okay, thank you. I don't know, Luis, would you like, or Laura would like to say something about this?
Yes, I had the same impression than you. I was thinking that at the beginning, next Monday, last Monday, I was in a focus group with fishmongers in Madrid, and I was surprised because of the low awareness of these people about the production systems. I mean, they have no idea about what aquaculture is, and they are supposed to be those experts that make recommendations for the general public, and they have no idea about aquaculture, about feeding animals, about how we handle these animals in the facilities. And I was surprised about the results. So I think I totally agree with you, and I think that there is a lack of general knowledge, and obviously this is affecting the perception of the consumers at the end, because consumers have to trust in someone, and if the people that consumers trust in are not providing them the right information, then we are lost. I mean, it's very, very difficult to reach consumers in another different way. So, yeah.
And you, Laura, you are younger than us. What is your thought? I don't know, your knowledge or your impression about this?
Well, I totally agree with you. Just I had the opportunity to moderate all these qualitative sessions, and yes, the general knowledge was low. But I was surprised because I was expecting that no one knows what aquaculture is, and they have some, some knowledge, but of course, but they are not aware of the fish that they buy. But at the end, the system and how this works is starting to, the knowledge is starting to increase. So the perspective are good. So we need to keep going on this line and finding these ways on what to communicate and how we can communicate these messages.
Okay, thank you. Well, there is one question in the chat from someone that I don't see the name from Greece, but I'm going to make you a question before we go for this kind of promotion or dissemination activities, open doors. So, and this is maybe to Temis, but for all of you, it's about how to communicate the information. You have spoken about the very importance of emotions. Probably that communicate emotions is maybe more effective than communicating facts. I don't know, is because it might be easier or not. Communicating fact takes maybe longer. But I suppose that even if it is said that communication emotions is very positive, it is also that we need to communicate knowledge and facts. So it should be a question of balance. Can you, I don't know, add something more about this?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. This is a very relevant question because, of course, the emotional part of the communication is not to replace the facts, but it is actually the type of how to make people more interested and more engaged into getting this information. So the idea is basically to increase transparency of the sector by providing more and more information that is balanced, it's actual facts. So, and slowly this increases of course, the average knowledge and awareness. But if the emotional element of pictures or what does this actually mean for each one of us is added, it can open the door for the consumers in a way to say, oh, okay, yeah, I can see why I need to learn more about this. Because if it's only facts, then it's just boring and there is so much information out there that it will not be attractive or not even stick to the memory. So the emotional part is, how can I say, it's more like a amplification of the interest of the consumers, because without interest you don't have education or memory.
Okay, I see, I understand. Laura and Luis.
Yes. I'm totally agree with the role of the emotions and the relevance that the emotions have in consumer behavior. But I think that is something that is a little bit tricky, and is that sometimes you try to communicate with emotions, but you never are sure that you are communicating what you want to communicate. I mean, for instance, when you prepare something like a picture, and it was one of the questions that I wanted to ask you, Dennis, about the selection of these pictures, because the same picture can have a different meaning for different people. And how can you communicate these emotions using the same picture for different people is a tricky thing, because everyone can perceive the same picture and can perceive the emotions in a different way. And even if you are evoking a very strong emotions, maybe you can get the opposite result. This is something that has been proved, for instance, in the campaigns for giving up smoking. That when you put a picture of something that is very disgusting on the package, you are at the end you are getting the opposite effect. So it's not affecting the consumers in a positive way. It's the contrary. So I think that is a key point, but it's a tricky and a difficult issue, because handling emotion is not easy at all. And for the reason, it's something that I also would like to discuss with you, Dennis. I don't know if you also check how people perceive these different images from a more physiological point of view. You mentioned the eye tracking, but I don't know if you also have the opportunity to have something like, I don't know, skin electrodermal conductivity of the skin, or something like brain activity with electroencephalograph or something like that, just to see whether the brain is activating, or this emotion or this picture is activating some specific areas of the brain or something like that, because I think it's important to assess the impact, the real impact of these emotional messages. That is, I'm sure that is not easy. It's not easy at all. Yeah.
Yeah, I can say that we didn't actually measure emotion activation, but we measured if using emotionally framed information is actually leading to higher liking. So, but I totally agree with you. It's a very tricky area. It's a minefield, because I mean, now we're getting into maybe too much in our field for the audience, but even the measurement of emotions is very complicated in itself, and it's and it is evolving every day with better and better research and more like round methods in measuring it. But the main idea with our approach was like, if we compare facts that we see in many campaigns, that people trying to increase knowledge by just providing facts versus trying to make people feel that there is a relevance to this information for them, for their daily life, for their household in a way. So that was where we went for, and we only used this one picture out of like picking from many. So we didn't test many other pictures, just to kind of a proof of concept. But I totally agree, it can lead to different reactions to different types of consumers and different types of not only consumers, let's call stakeholders, like everyone out there. And it would definitely need to be fine-tuned and carefully chosen for matching the information and the target group. And in that, I think also it would be even more effective to have several types of pictures in different posts, so that there is variation, and in a way kind of try to please different groups in different posts in a way, because there is not one picture that can satisfy that can lead to the positive reaction in all of them. So totally agree. That's a small indication towards a direction in a way. But the more work that can be done on this, the better to fine tune it.
Yeah. You are mute, Bernardo.
Sorry. Now?
Okay. Yeah.
Well, I was, I don't know, asking Laura if she would like to add something to the discussion before we move to...
Yes, of course. Yeah, just not related with emotion, because we discussed a little, but just I really enjoy your presentation, Temis, and just we indeed find similar results, not only in NewTechAqua, but also in other European projects, Med8, you know very well, Bernardo. And for example, we found that consumers think that aquaculture fish has, for example, have less pollution, heavy metals, for example, but as you say, communicating sensitive issues, for example, welfare, adding in a package, this fish contains less heavy metals, can have a contrary effect on consumers' minds. Like, hey, they might think, hey, fish has these heavy metals, therefore has a contrary effect of what we want, that is highlighting, hey, aquaculture fish and generally has lower quantities of these substances. So I'm glad, because we more or less find the same results.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I would like to add something, and then probably you will correct me or will precise more, is that I guess that we are talking about how to communicate with facts and with emotions, and how to be balanced and do it properly. That in this part of the discussion, we are not talking about beliefs, which are based on emotions and facts and knowledge, traditions, culture, and all these things. But I want to stress that because in some of the slides that you have showed, there are results that probably are based on beliefs or of the people that you have surveyed. No, so it was interesting for me to see the differences found about the perception of the sustainability of farm fish versus wild fish in France and Spain. More positive in Spain for aquaculture than in France. I don't know. Could you comment something about this? Where do you think? What are the possible reasons for that important difference?
I don't know. I have to say that I have no idea, but I was impressed because Temis obtained the same result. I mean, when he commented about the skeptical consumers, he mentioned UK and French consumers, and it's more or less the same that we also have been observed. I don't know why, but French people tend to be much more skeptical, much more critical about everything, about new technologies. I don't know. Maybe it has something to do with French culture. I don't know. We have no explanation for that. It's something that we have been observing many studies. It's like I don't know. French people, for instance, are more concerned about tasty food than about healthy food. For them, first is the sensory properties, and then the second important aspect is health. But in many other countries, like in Spain, so first is health, and then is at least is what consumers say. Then the truth, who knows? But at least is what people report, that they prefer first to have the health issues and then the sensory. And in the case of the French people is the opposite. So. But there is not any explanation, because I mean, from a cultural perspective, they are quite close to Spanish people, also to Italian people, or to even to Germans. But they behave normally, or they believe, or they say that they believe different things compared to other European countries. And I don't have any explanation for that. Maybe something linked to the culture. I don't know. I don't know, Temis, if you have any idea or any information about that, because I don't have much more idea.
No, just I was listening, smiling and nodding, because we have exactly the same experience in this project and in all the work we've been doing for quite some years now. And I think there is, of course, a cultural element, and there is maybe exposure to the food category in general. Like maybe it could be linked to increased consumption, that, for example, that makes you more familiar with, okay, yeah, it can be farmed, it can be wild, but as long as it's good. It can also be used, something we're testing every time, because it can also be the use of the scales, more positive, more enthusiastic. It can be so many things, but I think at the end of the day, the differences between countries are interesting to look at, but I think it gets more interesting when you look into segments like you presented here today, because I think country differences are there for some reasons, but they're very difficult to explain and very difficult to do anything about them. You cannot tell people to move in order to improve. But when you understand their personalities, then we also see that the borders are actually quite like a fiction, and the consumers are similar across countries in Europe. And there you can also target towards the change in a much better way.
Yeah. In fact, we didn't explain that in our presentation, but within the NewTechAqua, we also explore the similarity between not countries, but also between regions. We take those regions that are close each other, for instance, the south of France with the north of Spain, and we were able to see more similarities between these two very close regions than between countries, and even more differences between different regions within the same country than different regions belonging that are close each other that belong to different countries. So I totally agree with you that probably countries are losing their interest or their utility in order to discriminate between behaviors or between consumers or group of consumers. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So maybe, well, as time is passed fast, I would like just to make, I don't know, to open a short discussion about ways to communicate and improve knowledge of citizens and consumers. Then one of our attendees is Mini Bodano. is coming from Greece. I think has mentioned in the chat that in Greece the Hellenic Aquaculture Producers Organization has realized 2 gastro swim trips to their member facilities, where those that follow this activity can swim next to the nets and have also other experiences. Well, we congratulate our Greek colleagues for this initiative. We know that it takes work to organize open door visits to producers, to farms, but we congratulate that to them, no, for this initiative. We knew about this initiative because we do have Greek partners in NewTechAqua, and they told us. And they told us because we are in NewTechAqua, one of the activities we have is what we call a school campaign. In this school campaign, where we are, preparing materials. And in this case, the main purpose is just to prepare materials to allow the partners, whether they are from research or development or whether they are from companies, to go to high schools to open about aquaculture technology, how new technology can support sustainability. Well, we are preparing materials again. Probably we would like to see if our Greek colleagues can share with us this treasure game that they have developed, because it looks interesting. And also one of the things that we are developing, and Luis, you will have the opportunity to see that this week when you go to IRTA at La Rápita, is that we are developing like a kind of kit for either teachers or students to develop an aquaponic system at home. It's very simple aquaponic system at home, because I think that you have recommended that. So you will have the opportunity to see the system that the NewTechAqua is proposing, something that can be made with I don't know, materials, things that you can buy in a general shop, in these oriental bazaars, very cheap, and also that you can construct yourself. So I just to end with my comment regarding about this communication and emotions. We hope that with all this material, these tips or advice, we can facilitate this communication that sometimes research and development experts may do when they go to a high school, and making their communication more attractive, no, to younger generation, because that is probably one of the, I don't know, say, it's important thing for those that are in research, to communicate and make that attractive. So your comment, please, Luis, Laura, or Temis.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. In fact, what you commented about the aquaponics, in fact, it was one of the proposals that Laura mentioned in her presentation, about make things more let's say funny, or more close to the rural consumers. And I think that this is a nice strategy. I also would like to highlight the role of the living labs and citizen science and all these kinds of things that I think that are getting more and more important for the European Commission. In fact, nowadays, I think that there is even a specific call based on citizen science. And I think that is a nice way and an important way to increase the awareness of the consumers, of the general public about aquaculture, not only aquaculture, but about any practice or any kind of food processing or whatever. And I think that is something that is going. This is my personal feeling, but I think that is something that is going to increase in the next years. And so we should be prepared to try to incorporate, or try to as a researchers, we have to try to also to add this type of procedures, this type of techniques in our normal way of proceeding, normal way of working. because it's something that I'm pretty sure that is going to be very, very important in the future. Yeah.
Thank you. Laura or Temis?
Yeah, well, I'm
Laura?
glad that you have this RAS system almost already to to being launched to the general public, and I really like also the what they are doing in Greece, no, this gastro activity and so on. I would love to attend because just encouraging people or involving people in these activities is essential. It's essential to then you go home and you explain to your friends and family and so on. So that's I think that it's very relevant work.
Okay, thank you. Before I give the floor to Temis, I see that in the chat that they say that that is a lot of work, of course, and also that the treasure hunt was fun. Okay, thank you. Temis, would you like to add something?
Just, I mean, Laura and Luis covered everything, but a word that came to my mind, and it's, I think, also important when it comes to emotions and experiences, is engagement, because we communicate, and I mean, there's a lot of information out there, but if we engage consumers either with emotions or even better with experiences, then they will learn and they will remember and pay attention to what is happening. So this kit of aquaponics sounds perfect. I will actually try it at home, improvise something.
Yeah, so we are going to test it at the end of the month, and then we will have the final version that we will upload it at the web page of the project. What I can tell you is that it's going to be a cheap system. It's not going to be expensive. So in order to promote this exercise. Luis, would you like to do some closing words? Because I think that
I think that we are almost on time. So I just want to thank all of you for your participation in this seminar. I hope that you will enjoy it. For us, it was also very interesting, especially the part of the tennis, because I mean I have already information about what Laura already explained, because we are working together. So for me, the newest thing or the most important or interesting thing in this seminar was what Temis already explained. But in any case, so thank you very much to all of you for your participation. I hope that you at least have some take-home messages, the most relevant take-home messages, and I hope that it will help you to collaborate with us in order to increase the consumers' awareness about the sustainability and also about the aquaculture, that I think that is the main goal of this seminar.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Luis, Laura, Temis, and Yada from Bari. As you know, we are working as a team. As I said at the beginning, this webinar is being recorded. Once that we download it and edit just a very little, it will be uploaded to the NewTechAqua website. I invite those that are still with us to visit the web pages of both projects, of NewTechAqua and FutureEUAqua, because there you will find more information about the work that has been presented today. And thank you very much to all of you for your attention. Well, that's all for today. So bye-bye to all.